The game's up, Scarlet. There's no more bullets left in that gun. Oh! But I hadn't even gotten to the joke yet. Hey everyone, welcome to Mike's Little Lookbacks. On this episode, we're going back to 1985 to explore a movie based on a board game. And it just happens to be my favorite movie of all time. This is my little look back at Clue. Clue was a murder mystery comedy based on the game Cluedo, or as it's known in North America, Clue. Now, if you're not familiar with the board game, then you obviously get out too much. Stay home once in a while. Have a game night. Here's a quick rundown of the game. 3 to 6 players attempt to figure out who murdered the game's victim, what room they did it in, and with what weapon. Each player assumes the role of one of the suspects and strategically moves around the mansion game board, collecting clues about the crime from other players until they think they have it solved. The game was devised in 1943 by British board game designer Anthony Pratt, and was first manufactured in Britain in 1949 by a company called Waddington's. Over the years, the ownership of the game has changed a number of times, with the current owner being Hasbro. And you know what that means. They're going to get Michael Bay to direct a reboot that's going to feature robots, explosions, military vehicles, attractive people who look perpetually moist, the destruction of an entire city, and virtually nothing to do with the original game. Now, look, I know I was joking about that last part, but there is in fact a Clue movie in the works that is rumored to have Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman involved. But that's a discussion for another time. The movie was written and directed by Jonathan Lynn, who would go on to direct such comedies as My Cousin Vinny, The Distinguished Gentleman, Sergeant Bilko, and The Whole Nine Yards. The movie was developed by John Landis, known for such films as National Lampoon's Animal House, Trading Places, Spies Like Us, and Coming to America. Landis actually attempted to get the screenplay written by 3 other people before Lynn stepped in. Landis's first pick was playwright Tom Stoppard, who worked on the script for a year before giving up and returning all the money he'd been paid to work on it. Landis then approached Stephen Sondheim to write the script. Yes, that's Stephen Sondheim, the composer and lyricist, but he wanted too much money, which just left Anthony Perkins. The guy from Psycho? That's an odd choice. He only had 1 writing credit to his name from 1973. What was the logic there? I mean, you've played a murderer a couple of times, so you're perfect to write a murder mystery comedy based on a board game. What do you think? I'll have to ask Mother. Just like Sondheim, Perkins wanted too much money, so the job went to Lynn, who developed the story with Landis before writing the screenplay, though Landis does take credit for coming up with the movie's multiple endings. The film's score was composed by the multi-talented John Morris, who collaborated regularly with Mel Brooks. The score is really a character in the film all by itself, bringing tension and dread where it needs it, and high-paced energy for the comedic running about. Just take a listen to these brief examples.
The funny thing is, there's a whole group of people here having some sort of party.
The movie was filmed almost entirely on sound stages at Paramount Pictures Film Studios, with the exception of the mansion exteriors and the ballroom, which were filmed at the Max Bush House in South Pasadena, California. Unfortunately, in 2005, the historic manor, which had been featured in a few movies, burned down. The set was done so well that after the film wrapped, it was bought by the producers of the TV show Dynasty, who had it redressed and used as the Carlton Hotel on the show. During the production of Clue, the set was decorated with authentic 18th and 19th century furnishings rented from private collectors, including items from the estate of Theodore Roosevelt. That's some high-end stuff to be featured in a film with so much physical comedy. I'll bet that was a tense first day on set. Okay everyone, before we get started, just a couple of quick notes. While you're on set, there will be no eating, drinking, joking, laughing, running about, frolicking, horseplay of any kind. I don't want you breathing on anything, let alone fondling it. Lloyd, I am talking to you, alright? What? No, Madeline, you cannot lick Roosevelt's desk. The original cast of the film was Leonard Rossiter as Wadsworth, Carrie Fisher as Miss Scarlet, Martin Mull as Colonel Mustard, Michael McKean as Mr. Green, Madeline Kahn as Mrs. White, Christopher Lloyd as Professor Plum, Eileen Brennan as Mrs. Peacock, and Colleen Camp as Yvette. Now, if you're thinking things like, who's Leonard Rossiter? And Princess Leia wasn't in this movie. That's because they were replaced before production began. Rossiter was a British actor with a long theatrical career who also found success in television comedies. Lynn handpicked the entire cast, and Rossiter was his first choice for Wadsworth. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1984 just before pre-production on the film began. Lynn's next choice was Rowan Atkinson, who also had success on British television, but this was before Mr. Bean, and the producers decided he was too unknown in America, and thus the role was given to Tim Curry. Carrie Fisher was contracted to play Miss Scarlet, but checked into rehab for drug addiction 4 days before filming was to begin. Fisher tried to arrange a leave of absence while in rehab in order to keep her role in the film, and while Lynn, the clinic, and the film's producers agreed, the decision was overruled by the production's insurance company, forcing Fisher to leave the project. Leslie Ann Warren was then brought on to play the part. One of the more unique aspects of the movie is that it has multiple endings. The idea came from John Landis, and why would he come up with such a scheme? To make more money, of course. Landis thought that when people learned they could see a different ending at a different theater, they would pay to see the film again. Did this tactic lead to box office success? The film released on December 13th, 1985, to mixed reviews, and only grossed $14.6 million in North America on a $15 million budget. So, no, the gimmick, as it was referred to by Roger Ebert, did not bring in the bucks. Which, I guess I can understand. Each ending is only about 5 minutes, with the rest of the film being the exact same, which is probably a hard sell to get someone to buy another ticket for. Once the movie was released on home video, the decision was made to include all 3 endings back to back, which is how I first experienced the movie. Despite its lack of blockbuster success, the film would develop a cult following on home media. I myself owned 3 copies of the VHS, one for me to watch, one as a backup in case something happened to the original, and one to lend out should someone else want to watch it. That way I wouldn't be without my own copy. So, I guess you could say I thought the movie was okay. Looking back, I can see now that I may have had a problem, but now I only own 1 copy of it on VHS, like a normal person. 2 on DVD, 1 on Blu-ray, and a digital copy as well. Look, I can stop watching the movie anytime I want. Despite critical opinions of the film, I absolutely love it. It helped me realize my own comic sensibilities. Witty one-liners, pratfalls and slapstick, idiots that think they're clever, and people running in and out of doors in a state of utter chaos. In fact, Clue inspired me to write my first stage play when I was 18 years old. It was called Like Clockwork and took place in a big mansion and featured spies, thieves, a giant emerald, and murder. It was also my first play to get produced and won me the Best Original Writing Award from the Desert Theater League of Palm Springs. For that, I will always be grateful. And there's no joke here. I'm genuinely thankful to this movie that got me thinking about writing comedy. I'm fine! It's time for the recap, so if you haven't seen this movie, what the hell are you doing with your life? You stop watching this right now, go watch Clue, and then come back. I'll wait. Finished? I hope so. It's time to get started, and full disclosure, I will be spoiling the endings. We open on the ominous-looking Hill House on a stormy night in 1954. Wadsworth arrives at the mansion. He shortens the chain on the guard dogs and ends up stepping in the literally, which becomes a running gag for the entire start of the film. Inside the house, Wadsworth checks with Yvette the maid and Mrs. Ho the chef to make sure that dinner will be ready on time. Just after this, the guests begin to arrive, starting with Colonel Mustard, who tries to give his real name but is instructed by Wadsworth that he might want to use the pseudonym he was provided. The Colonel is escorted to the library, and then this happens.
Oh, Wadsworth,
Who designs a library like that? Admittedly, it looks cool, but if you're ever doing some late-night reading... Who am I kidding? Nobody reads physical books anymore. My point is that under the right circumstances, you could get trapped in there. Hello, police. I need help. You see, I've locked myself inside the library and I can't seem to find the door. Well, because the door looks like books, you see. Why, yes, I am calling from Hill House. Hello? Hello? Next to arrive is Mrs. White, who immediately has friction with Yvette. She Probably just doesn't like fraternizing with the help. We next meet Miss Scarlet, whose car has broken down on the side of the road. Professor Plum happens along, and he's a bit of a pervert. I mean, he's a man, so that's a given, but you can tell immediately with him because of the way he stops to help.
Want a lift?
As the two continue on to Hill House, we cut to Wadsworth introducing Mrs. Peacock to the others, leading to this awkward moment. Yeah, Mrs. Peacock would hit that. Mr. Green arrives next, followed by Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet. It's here that we learn the professor is more of a Harvey Weinstein type than I'm comfortable with.
What a godforsaken place.
When is that ever appropriate behavior with a stranger? I think we need some lessons on proper human etiquette.
Meeting new people can be exciting, but are you putting your best foot forward in your social interactions? When encountering a stranger in a public place, what should you do with your hands? That's second base, and you're not even in the ballpark yet. No, that's even worse. The correct answer is, keep those things to yourself, unless otherwise invited. There you go. You're on your way to becoming a good human being. In our next lesson, we'll cover why you shouldn't take photographs of your genitals and text them to people who haven't requested them. Sure, it was popular back in the Renaissance when royals would send dick paintings to each other as gifts, but does it have a place today? Find out next time.
Anyway, to make a long story short, the guests arrive and sit down for dinner where they learn that they are all connected to Washington, D.C. in some way. During dinner, a final guest arrives, Mr. Body, who is immediately at odds with Wadsworth. After dinner, in the study, it's revealed that the guests have been being blackmailed and that Mr. Body is the one that's been doing it. It seems Wadsworth set all this up so they can all testify about Body's crimes and see him locked up. It's an idea that no one's really keen on since they would have to admit their own secrets. Mr. Body knows this and makes a counteroffer.
The only way to avoid finding yourselves on the front pages is for one of you to kill Wadsworth.
Now, I'm no blackmailer, but that seems like a stupid plan. All these people have reason to hate you. I mean, one of them is being blackmailed for potentially killing her husband, and then you go and give them weapons? It's like Mr. Body's trying to live up to the name. As expected, the plan fails, and someone kills Mr. Body when the power briefly goes out. At first, they think he was shot, but after realizing he wasn't, Professor Plum suggests that maybe he was poisoned, resulting in...
It's all right. I don't know anything. Sit down, Miss...
Suddenly, everyone hears Yvette screaming from the billiard room. They go to her and find out that she was screaming because she drank the cognac and was afraid that she might have been poisoned as well. They bring her back to the study, and it's revealed that Wadsworth was also one of Mr. Body's victims. He and his wife were being blackmailed by Mr. Body until his wife ended her own life over it.
I resolved to put Mr. Body behind bars.
The group decides they need to figure out who killed Mr. Body before the police arrive. Or, just hang out and let the police sort that out when they get there. It's kind of their job. But they don't do that. Nope. They decide that the cook might be the killer, but find her dead in the kitchen. So they decide to bring the cook's body to the study, and for a very good reason.
I'm the butler. I like to keep the kitchen tidy.
They discover Mr. Body's body. Mr. Body's body? It's going to cause problems. They discover Mr. B's body missing.
Look! What? The body's gone!
I have to give props to the actors playing dead bodies in this movie. Mrs. Ho and Mr. Body especially. They get seriously abused. Like Weekend at Bernie's abused. The group discovers Mr. B in the bathroom, really dead this time from having his head bashed in with a candlestick. In an effort to find the killer, everyone convenes in the library, but first...
Just checking.
Everything all right?
Yep, 2 corpses, everything's fine.
I mean, that's how I judge if a situation is fine or not. Anything under or over 2 corpses and we've got a problem, but if it's just 2, we're golden. Anyway, the rest of the film becomes a scramble to find the killer. They split up to search the house while additional strangers show up over the course of the next 30 minutes, including a motorist, a cop, and a singing telegram girl, each getting offed by one of the various clue weapons. Yvette is also strangled with the rope. Murder? Or some BDSM gone wrong? You be the judge.
They know every inch of my body, and they're not the only ones. It's you!
At a certain point, Wadsworth finally declares he knows who did it.
And furthermore, I'm going to tell you how it was all done.
This is where the pacing of the film gets dialed up to 11, with the entire cast running from room to room, recapping the events of the evening. Wadsworth explains where he began the evening... Wait, I'm gonna recap a recap of something I just recapped? Is this movie trying to make me look stupid in front of my viewers?
Don't need any help from me, sir.
After the recap, Wadsworth switches the power to the house off and back on again. It is at this point that we divide into our 3 separate endings. If you saw this at a theater, one of 3 endings would play, and that was it. On home video, all 3 endings play, with title cards in between explaining what's going on. In the first ending, the killer is revealed to be Yvette and Miss Scarlet, the former having killed the cook and Mr. Body, and the latter having killed the motorist, Yvette, the cop, and the singing telegram girl. It turns out Yvette worked for Miss Scarlet, gathering information for her to have her own little blackmail business. Scarlet's going to continue blackmailing everyone, except for Wadsworth, who she plans to kill, leading to one of the most memorable scenes of the film.
That's not 6.
1 + 2 + 2 + 1.
There was only one shot that got the chandelier. That's 1 + 2 + 1 + 1.
Even if you were right, that would be 1 + 1 + 2 + 1, not 1 + 2 + 1 + 1.
It turns out Wadsworth was working with the FBI, and the whole thing was a setup to capture Scarlet, which is a solid ending. In the second ending, the killer is revealed to be Mrs. Peacock. Her reason for killing Mr. B was to end the blackmail, and she killed the others in case Mr. B told them about her and her taking political bribes. Mrs. Peacock escapes outside only to be apprehended by the FBI, whom Wadsworth had been working for.
Like the Manties, we always get our man.
Mrs. Peacock was a man?
Another solid ending, but I'm starting to sense a pattern here. What is that pattern? That women are evil and men are stupid. In the third ending, everyone did it. Here we go. Professor Plum killed Mr. B with the candlestick to end the blackmail. Mrs. Peacock killed the cook with the knife because she had been her cook and informed on her to Mr. B. Colonel Mustard killed the motorist who had been his driver during the war with the wrench. It seems the motorist had been giving information to Mr. B about the colonel's war profiteering. Miss Scarlet killed the cop with the lead pipe whom she'd been bribing to avoid her escort service being shut down. And Mrs. White killed Yvette, who'd been having an affair with her husband with the rope. So not BDSM then. Oh, and hot tip, Mrs. White also killed her husband, but that was before. And finally, to make a long story short,
Too late!
Mr. Green must have killed the singing telegram girl. Wait, but that doesn't make any sense. Her connection was to Professor Grabass. So who shot her?
I shot her.
Et tu, Wadsworth? Et tu? You were the hero in the other endings.
We all make mistakes.
It turns out that Wadsworth is actually Mr. B, and the Mr. B that was killed was his butler, which seems like a strange thing to go along with, even if you are being blackmailed into indentured servitude. Anyway, it's revealed that Mr. Green is actually working for the FBI, and he has a showdown with Wadsworth.
But if you want to know who killed Mr. Body, I did. In the hall. With the revolver.
It's easily the best ending of the 3, and you could see why it's placed at the end. In the 4th ending? Oh, that's right. There was originally going to be 4 endings. The 4th ending was actually filmed, but removed by the director, citing that it wasn't very good. In this ending, Wadsworth did all the murders to commit the perfect crime. Apparently he had some kind of obsession with perfection. He reveals that he poisoned all the guests' champagne and that they'll all die soon, leaving no witnesses, which is pretty dark. The FBI show up and arrest Wadsworth, only to have him escape stealing one of the squad cars, but he's stopped by some police dogs lunging at him from the back seat, thus bringing the whole Wadsworth-dog conflict full circle.
So, everything is explained.
Personally, even if the ending isn't very good, I'd love to see it. This cast is one of my favorite comedy ensembles, and I'll take any excuse to see more of them together. I want a behind the scenes. I want deleted scenes. I want a gag reel. I want to interview craft services to know the actors' food preferences. I want to talk to hair and makeup to know what Michael McKean smells like. Okay. You know, I'm starting to see that I may still have a problem.
That's what we call overkill. What we call a psychotic.
I may be blinded by my love of this movie, but I strongly recommend it if you've never seen it. Sure, the plot is silly, but it's based on a board game, and I feel like it represents that game rather well. Heck, the set of Hill House is laid out exactly like the rooms on the game board, including the secret passageways. It's a fun movie where you can just relax and enjoy some great cast chemistry mixed with some farcical humor.
She's going to faint. Sorry, cancer! I'll catch you. Fall into my arms. Sorry.
What are your thoughts on Clue? Is it a movie you saw when it came out or later in life? Who's your favorite character? What's your favorite line? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if there's something from your childhood you want to see me tackle on this show, mention it in the comments. I'll see you all next time. I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife. Wait, I'm not married.
I hated her so much. Flames on the side of my face.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and a share. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell icon to be notified when more Little Look Back episodes go up. And we've got some other nostalgic shows on the channel, so stick around. You might find something else that you like.